Hey friend, welcome to the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I'm your host, Emily Nichols. As a Whole30 certified coach, wife, busy working boy mom, and your self-care guru, I'm here to help you start putting yourself first without the guilt. Each week you'll hear motivating and practical tips on how you can create a habit of self-care through interviews with my amazing guests or quick solo episodes with me. After each episode, you'll walk away with an action plan and feel empowered to implement what you have learned into your life. So grab a cup of coffee, glass of wine, or your favorite sparkling water, and let's do this. Hey, welcome back to the show. You're listening to episode 30 of the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I can't believe we're 30 episodes in. Make sure you are subscribing so you're updated when a new episode drops every Monday. And make sure you tune in next Monday for next week's quickie tip. I am going to be sharing some exciting news with you all that I can't wait. I hate to be cryptic like that, but the suspense is fun, right? So for today's episode, I am bringing on my friend, Amanda Clark. I knew I wanted to have Amanda on the show once I got to know her a little bit better just through social media and seeing her story and really just what a bright light she is. And she's just really inspiring to me. So Amanda and I both write for the Indianapolis Moms blog. And as I was following her online, just like, man, she's just such a cheery woman. Her and her daughter are just living. I feel like she lives such a colorful life. But as I got to know her a little bit more, I realized that she really has a story and a journey that she has been on. So let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. She is the founder of the Cocktails and Chemo Foundation. So it's an organization that started in honor of her late husband, Joe. And pretty much the mission is simple. They are caring for caregivers, which is what this episode is all about, self-care as a caregiver. But the issue is much more complex, and she's working to change the narrative and just really encourage caregivers to pursue self-care and understanding that their struggle matters too. And she knows this firsthand, walking through the cancer journey with her husband, Joe, who unfortunately she ultimately lost in 2014. If you go to their website, which I'll link in the show note, you can see a lot of wonderful blog entries from Amanda and Joe through their cancer journey, from his perspective as a patient, hers as the caregiver, which you'll probably laugh, you'll cry, because I certainly did. Amanda has really made it her mission to turn her grief into a rallying cry, just to care for those silently suffering beside the patient, which she mentions this in the episode, but I love this. She says, I have a sad story, but I am not a sad person. And what an amazing perspective to have considering the journey she's been on. So make sure you do check out the show notes, because I will include a link to the Cocktails and Chemo Gala coming up in Carmel, Indiana on Saturday, March 7th. I will be there dressed in my blue. I have a few girlfriends going, but stick around to the end as well, as I'll share my biggest takeaways and ways that you can get involved with the Cocktails and Chemo organization to help promote self-care for those caregiving for their loved ones. So thank you for listening. Sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation with my friend, Amanda Clark. Okay, everyone, let's welcome Amanda Clark to the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. Amanda, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
I am so excited. I just love this topic. It is very near and dear to my heart.
Oh, well, I'm so excited for this conversation and for all the takeaways people are going to have. But before we get started, the first question I ask all my guests is, what does self-care mean to you? So Amanda, what does self-care mean to you?
Self-care. Ooh, I like this question. I think for me, it is about recognizing that you are worthy of a moment. And I think sometimes self-care can feel like pressure almost, like, oh, and now on top of everything else, I've got to remember to do something for myself. But you are worthy of that moment. And even just that recognition to me is self-care and the true essence of what it means to take a moment for yourself. So that's my definition, I guess.
I love that. And I love that you said no pressure.
Right?
Well, I feel like self-care is having its own little moment right now. And a lot of people are like, self-care Sunday and this and that. And I feel like maybe some people feel a lot of pressure, like, well, I should be doing all that. But like you said, it could just be a moment and you're worthy of that.
You really are. And I think it can easily feel like something else you've got to do, right? It's like on top of add that to your to-do list. So yeah, I guess I'm also supposed to take care of myself, but it's just reprioritizing to say, well, yeah, I mean, you are so worthy of that care while you're caring for everyone else around you.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love that perspective. So, okay, let's talk about you a little bit. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think the reason, I was super excited to come on and talk to you about self-care because it's really at the center of what I do from the mission of the nonprofit that I started 5 years ago, which is crazy. And the nonprofit is called Cocktails and Chemo, and our mission is caring for caregivers. And it's a role that I just know too well. My husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer when he was 28 years old. And I was 28 and we were just getting married and life was very crazy. And then boom, he had cancer. And I quickly fell into this role of caregiver, and it was trying to kind of figure out what all that meant was really complicated for me. My husband he passed away in 2014, and he was 31 years old, and I had an 11-month-old daughter. And I just realized man, there is no one supporting the person that is standing by caring for someone else. And so our entire mission is about showing support to caregivers. And so much of that is as simple and complicated as self-care. And so, so I'm a mom. I'm a solo mom. I'm a widow. I run a nonprofit. I have a background in marketing, and I kind of have this little mission to just spread awareness of how we can better support the people who are holding it all together when someone they love is really sick. So that's kind of a long version of my whole, or I guess a short version of a long story, but that's why self-care is just so important to me and should be, at the top of the list for so many of us.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you lost your husband. I'm sure that whole journey was kind of a journey itself and just kind of eye-opening as far as relationships in your life as well.
Absolutely. It's been, it's been 5 years, but there have been some just earth-shattering heartbreak and loneliness. And, so many of my friends did not know how to support me, did not know how to be there, said really stupid things. And then there were other people that I would have never expected that stood up to the task and weren't afraid to be there and show support. And so much of what we do at my nonprofit is because, wow, I learned a lot from the people that did the right things and showed up for me. And so, yeah, it's been a long journey. I don't know if it ever really is over because I think grief stays with you forever, and it pops its ugly head at the weirdest times. But I'm in a really amazing place where I have a great community and I have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, and I feel very lucky that I am able to try and kind of give back to others that are in a situation that I was once in.
Yeah. Well, and I can just say, knowing just a little bit about your journey and just following you on social media, you come across as a very bright light, and that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Thank you so much.
You really do. So, well, let's go back to talking about how friends can maybe support someone while they're going through either a cancer journey or some type of sickness. Because like you said, there's people that kind of almost, I don't know if they just don't know how to support people or they say really dumb things, but how can someone show up for someone going through that journey?
I had this amazing thing happen to me when my husband was sick. So we were actually living in Texas. We had to travel for him to get the best treatment. And so we were in Houston, Texas. I was 8 months pregnant. and I was drained. I mean, he had been in the hospital for 46 days. I'm walking the halls with this giant belly and my first pregnancy. And I was so beyond drained, like cross-eyed cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I had this complete stranger, a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. And she was like, hey, I want you to know, I looked up online. I found a staff that's walking distance from the hospital. I set you up with an 80-minute prenatal massage. It's already paid for. You can't say no. You just have to call and book it.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what? Like, I was like, I mean, she put me in such a position that like I couldn't not go. She had paid for it. It was like everything was done. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and I kind of worked it out where somebody stayed with him at the hospital, and I went over there, and I remember just taking that time and having this massage and getting this like touch and this moment for me that when I left that day, I felt like a completely different person. It was like I had been cross-eyed and suddenly could see straight, and I felt rejuvenated, and I felt worthy of that love and touch that I had just been given in this gift. And I walked back in, and I was a better caregiver. I was a better wife. I was more patient. I was able to listen to the doctors and ask questions, and some of that anger and snippiness that had been riding on my shoulders, it was removed. And I just, it was a really amazing gift to give. And I just thought, wow, this is what it's all about. But I had to have someone almost like, tie me down to make me do it, because lots of people had said, oh, let me know how I can help. Let me know how I can help. And talk about pressure, because then all of a sudden, not only are you dealing with all of this craziness, but now you're supposed to also delegate the tasks and communicate with all these people and figure out schedules. And like, I couldn't take that on.
Yeah.
And so some of those people this one person, what she gave me, it truly shaped everything we do at the organization, because it's like, we're going to make you take this moment. And it was just such a beautiful gift and recognition of what I was going through. And there was no expectations from her about it, that I had to be the one to do it. It was all taken care of for me. And so those are some of the things that I find, like, if you can find a way to say, hey, I'll pick up your kids from school today. Why don't you take an hour for yourself, and I'll do carpool? Or, hey, I'll drive, do you need me to drive your daughter's gymnastics? Or, hey, I just dropped off a Starbucks on the front porch. And hey, those things are amazing. And they're amazing because you didn't have to think about it. It's kind of like, as a mom, where it's like, hey, it's our anniversary dinner. Okay, great. Go ahead and make the reservation. And you're like, oh, sure. Let me also do that. It's like, that's the way it feels. And so like when your friend is in a really hard time, if you could take something off their plate, like that's winning.
Well, what a mindset shift for you. I mean, I'm thinking of my mom went through a breast cancer journey this past year. And when she started chemo, she has this big group of girlfriends that were all like, we're going to come to all your chemo treatments and sit with you. And it was almost stressing her out, because all of them were texting her, when would it be a good time? Oh, there's only allowed to be this many people in the room. Well, what shift can we come on? And finally, I was just like, just tell them, just come whenever. And if you can't stay, you can't stay, because it was stressing her out.
It's too much stress. And then suddenly you're like, I don't need to now be coordinating all of this, like, it's like, this is too much that I can handle. But, showing up in such a like authentic way. And even the fact that, I had some friends that did a meal plan for me, like a meal train. And there were people that would like ring the doorbell, show up, and then want to walk in my kitchen and like stand there and let me entertain them. And I was exhausted. I had a brand new baby, and my husband was upstairs sleeping, and I just thought, I ended up saying, I don't really want anyone to bring me food anymore, because I can't handle this. It's too much. So a friend ended up, she put a cooler on the front porch and told people to drop it off there. And that was amazing, because then it was like, the meals were wonderful, but I couldn't be asked to then do all that extra part of it. I have my house clean enough to have people over, and how you feel. And so some of those things that it's like, that is the way to support a friend, is just taking things off their plate. Don't add to it.
Well, and it's all about taking action. I mean, I think people have really like the best intentions to be like, what can I do to help you? Or just, I'm praying for you, or let me bring you a meal. But I feel like they have to have some type of action. Like you said, just doing it is the biggest
Yes,
thing.
just do it.
How's that saying go? Oh yeah, all things are possible with coffee and mascara. Well, that's certainly true for me, and I love to have my coffee every morning after my workout, and I don't really leave the house without mascara. So my fellow blondies, I know you feel me on this. But gang, check it out. Having my coffee every morning is part of my self-care routine, and I always take my coffee blended with nut pods and coconut oil. So nut pods is a dairy-free creamer. It's made from a blend of almond butter and coconut cream. I love the French vanilla flavor. It's my favorite. It's super yummy, super smooth, but even better, it's Whole30 approved. So gang, head on over to nutpods.com and use the code EmilyNichols22 to get 15% off your first order of Nut Pods. That's EmilyNichols22, EmilyNichols22. And let me know once you receive your Nut Pods what your favorite flavor is and how you take your coffee. So remember, just head on over to nutpods.com.
And just do anything, like pop a card in the mail, show up, help them with their kids. Like, there's some really, and I hate to say it, but rally people together to give some money, because it's needed. It's like they really, really need it right then. And getting some of that money, if everyone at your work could give $5, that's going to be something that you can give. It's super, super great.
Yeah. What shouldn't someone say to someone who's going through a journey like you went through?
Yeah. I think that we can all get our feelings hurt when you feel like someone doesn't appreciate what you've done for them or thank them, or it's just grace, giving them grace during that time to know they may snap at you, they may forget to invite you to something, and just, if you have a friend that's going through something really awful, just give them some grace. And don't say things that make them feel even yuckier. They don't need the extra yuck. And some of the things that are like really is just those cliche sayings that they're in a better place, or there's, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. Those are really, really painful when you are in the midst of something, because you just need someone to listen and be there, sit beside you, and just kind of be quiet and say, I see you, I hear you. And this isn't the time to be coming at them with all your great ideas. Just kind of just walk alongside them on this journey, because heaven forbid you're ever in the same position. You're going to want that same unconditional, non-judgmental support and love.
Yeah. Just being there, like you said, to listen and hold your hand and show you love, versus trying to give their opinion, or, everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So they always want to tie it back to maybe an experience they went through that was maybe similar, but not the same. And it's just not good.
Absolutely. No, it isn't. And it's like, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about so you got this prenatal massage when you were 8 months old.
Yeah.
Your girlfriend forced you to go do it.
Yes.
How can someone who is caring for a sick loved one actually make time for self-care? Because I know for them, it may feel very selfish, but like you said, it's so needed, so they're able to show up better. So how can they make the time for that?
I think that you have to remember that you cannot give from an empty cup, and that just has to stay, that it is not, self-care is not selfish. It is a necessity. And taking just a moment to take a walk outside, go get your hair colored, whatever that you can do. And that means asking for help. And that can be really, really hard as a caregiver, because when you're in that role, you feel like you are truly the only one who can care for your loved one the best. And that may be true, very true. But taking an hour to go recharge, it's no different than the moms, you know, that need to take a little break in their closet, need a candy bar to get away from those maniacs. Like you have to recharge, because you running on empty isn't good for anybody. So I like really love the moments where I could run over and get my nails done, or run over and go to Target by myself, or take just a quick normal errand and do it alone, and have a minute to meet maybe with a friend, or something that's just going to give you energy. And that's different for different people. But knowing that like you have to take that moment to slow down so that you can be the best you can be, so that you can be focused. And you have to try to love yourself as much as you would love a friend going through the same thing. And you have to stop and think, if my friend was acting the way I am, what would I be saying to them? Because you know you'd be telling them to slow down. You know you'd be saying you've got to eat. And so just reminding yourself that it is so critical to your well-being and to your loved one.
Yeah. Well, like you just mentioned, your version of self-care could be as simple as going outside and eating, you know, going to get your nails done, you know, taking time to look at like a gossip internet site or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be just something simple, but I do think that just breaking out a workout class, you know, that has been major for some caregivers, to get out and go take a quick walk or a run, or, you know, do a Pilates class. That those, it's an hour, you know, it's an hour that can then recharge you for another 24, you know, so it's really important. But I think it's just changing your mindset to know that self-care is not selfish, and that's not always easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially when, as you know, you're sitting in a hospital room, which is a weird place because it feels like the time goes by fast, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like a big time warp. It's weird. And being able to get out of those four walls, and like you said, you're just able to fill your cup up, even if it's just a tiny bit.
Yeah. Right. It's so true. It's so true.
Let's talk about the mission behind Cocktails and Chemo a little bit, and what type of activities you do for the caregivers you support.
Yeah. So Cocktails and Chemo, we currently serve about 1,000 caregivers a year in all different kinds of avenues. So we do some pretty amazing things. We do give care cards. So we have right now, where if you go to our website and you nominate a caregiver where you say, man, I just don't know what to do, I don't know how to help them. Well, when you don't know what to do, Cocktails and Chemo does. So we have someone that handwrites cards and sends them a $25 gift card that says, this is just for you. This is something for you to go online shopping, do something for yourself. And that's just one of the most, I just love that we do this, because it's not even about the dollar amount, just like a simple recognition. We also do these large dollar grants that are called the Our Tribe Grant. And they're for families who need some extra help paying for childcare while a loved one is sick. So we've had them given where maybe a child is sick and the mom has had to take excessive days off and to be the one caring for their child. We've given grants for that. We also paid directly to daycares a month's worth of childcare while maybe the dad is in chemotherapy and out of work. So that is a really amazing opportunity to just take some of the weight off their shoulders financially, because the truth is it's a major financial burden when someone gets sick. The other thing we do is we host events that are just for the caregivers. We call them our giving events, and we do them at a salon, a Stay Glam event. We've done a badass mama blowout party, and we invite caregivers to have a night of pampering and love, and we kind of take over the whole salon, and we try to do it so fancy and fun and just fill that cup up with love and touch and hair done and makeup and little gifts. And it's just a special night, because when you see them walk through the door and they're exhausted and drained and nervous and feeling awkward about accepting this care, and then the way they look at the end of the night, they're recharged and ready, and they haven't looked in the mirror for a while and said, wow, you look good, and they're feeling themselves. And it is just a really amazing event. And I think it teaches caregivers that, wow, I just took a short amount of time for myself and I really feel it and see it. So those are the events we fundraise throughout the year to be able to help support financially to host some of these different events for caregivers. And then we also have online support groups and a community of people where when you can't sleep at 1 a.m, there's a way to log in and say, hey, I need help, or does anyone else feel this? And so that's a huge part of what we do as well.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You
I
support
know, it's just so
1,000
great.
people. I think that's just amazing. It makes me sad that many people are having to take care of their loved ones too. But
I know, but it happens. It's life,
it's
and
life. Yeah.
I think it's changing our culture. It's like kind of the same as like this self-care mom culture, and knowing like, hey mom, it's not selfish that you went for a walk. It's not selfish that you have a girls' night. It's not selfish that you joined a book club. Like that's self-care.
Yeah.
And so for caregivers, that guilt is magnified, because that person is sick and they feel like, well, this isn't about me, but we all know it is. And you have to be your best you to do this. So that's like kind of the whole mission of Cocktails and Chemo, is just shifting that mindset and helping caregivers know that they can find support, and where we say, we see you, we love you, and we're going to help.
Yeah. I love how creative you've been with helping them, not only with your salon events, but, when my mom went through chemo, she's retired, and she kept saying, if I was a younger mom and working, she goes, I don't know how I would have done this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, like you said, paying for childcare or having to take all the time off. I mean, there's so many different factors other than just you're sick and you're going to get treatment and you go home and everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's so much to it. And so we're trying to constantly get creative. I'm glad that you say that. And because I do want to be the kind of support that's different, and meeting a need that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure these women leave your events just feeling like maybe a little bit of weight is lifted off their shoulders. Maybe they can breathe just a little easier.
Yes. And we sure hope so, because we just want them to know that we see you, and that whole idea that you're worthy of this time and attention, because we see you, we see the sacrifices you're making.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have a fun gala coming up, and I'm going to it. I got my dress.
Yay.
I'm in this whole big group chat where we're all sending different dresses to each other.
Oh my gosh. I love it so much. It's just, so this is our biggest fundraiser. It's March 7th in Carmel, Indiana. And it's our biggest fundraiser because we really raise enough to kind of sustain us for 2 years. Yeah. And so the idea is that we, hit it hard and then can spend the rest of our time doing what we really want to be doing, which is giving and giving to caregivers. And so we just like kind of put out a big rallying cry, like, let's all chip in together. And it allows us to continue to give these big dollar grants and to give the care cards and to host the events. And we kind of have like kind of a fun long-term goal of eventually being able to have some caregivers like on our staff. So people that are struggling financially, that we could kind of maybe create some jobs for them through the foundation that they can do while they're managing being a caregiver, and provide them some extra income while they're also doing, down in the trenches, doing some of the dirty work of helping us run the actual organization. So the fundraiser is amazing. It's like a big old fancy blue tie gala, and it's going to be a great time.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And, are you ever looking for volunteers as far as people to help out at your gala or your events that you do throughout what you do?
We love it. And what we really love is when people want to like kind of gather their groups and get to work for us. So you can actually host a card writing party for caregivers and do it at your house. And we'll give you the addresses and names of some people who could use some love, and you guys drink your wine and sit in a circle and help spread some of that love and self-care to send out to somebody else. So that's one way we definitely put our volunteers to work. And then we're always looking for ways that people can kind of get engaged with our fundraisers, whether they're like kind of tapping into their community of getting silent auction items and some of those things. But we actually have some real opportunities where, you can just sit down at your table and write a card to someone, and that you'd be amazed at what an impact that makes.
Wow. Well, it's all a little bit at once. That really adds up.
Yeah, right?
For sure.
Little things that make a big, big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am inspired by this conversation. I'm so excited to go to the gala. And like I said, your story is really, It's inspiring, just to hear, I'm sure for other caregivers that are in the trenches right now, to see that you're okay. Like I said, you are a bright light. I think
Yeah.
you really are. I think
Thank you.
it'll really help a lot of people going through various hard times in their life, because like you said, storms come and go, and sometimes they come back and can go again.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but making time for
I
yourself
like
is always a priority.
it is. I like to say that I have a very sad story, but I am not a sad story.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has kind of, it's also given me that moment that I talked about of just knowing like I am worthy and I'm worthy of getting better and I'm worthy of feeling good again and happy. And I know it's what my husband Joe would have wanted for me. I know. And I know the truth is most caregivers, it's what the person that they're loving on, they want them to take a moment for them. And they just don't always know how to help support them get there. But it's a critical thing, that's this self-care talk we do, because I don't think I'd be standing if I hadn't been willing to kind of take these moments for myself, to take the time to rebuild and recharge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Amanda, where can everyone connect with you online? And are there still tickets available for the gala?
There are. So the website is cocktailsandchemo.org. And then we're very active on our Facebook page. So if you go on to Facebook and search for Cocktails and Chemo, it is really the main spot that our community does a lot of chit chat and keeping up with the events and things. So that's a great place. And then you can just, there's a place to contact me directly through the website. And I'm usually pretty good about getting back to people, unless like you go into a weird folder on my Instagram. But other than that, I'm getting better at figuring out where those were going.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Amanda, thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm inspired. I'm going to have a card writing party now. That sounds
Oh, I love that. I love it.
fun.
Thank you.
I
Thank
would
you for
love
what
to
you
do that.
do.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna call my mom after this, because I know her and her girlfriends would probably like to do something like this too.
Oh my gosh, it would be amazing. It would be just so amazing. And it's just kind of, it's that culture of just shifting your mind a little bit to know that you're worthy, girl.
You are worthy, girl. Great notes to end on. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Wow. So, are you just as inspired after listening to this conversation with Amanda as I am? Thank you so much, Amanda, for sharing your journey with us. And, the theme kept coming up, which I love that you kept saying, you are worthy. You are worthy of self care. You are worthy of taking care of yourself in whatever way you need to. And I know that can be really hard when you're in the position of a caregiver. All of your time and your energy goes towards that loved one going through a sickness. However, like Amanda said, she had to find ways to take care of herself to be able to show up as a better caregiver for her husband, Joe. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story with us. Like I always do, I always want to leave you with my 3 biggest takeaways from my guests so you can start implementing these self-care action plans into your daily routine or into your mindset. So, coming from the perspective as someone being a caregiver for a loved one. So, if you are wanting to, number one, if you are wanting to support someone who is going through a trial or a sickness with a loved one right now, take action. Just don't say, what can I do to help you? Let me know. Because like Amanda said, that was more headspace that she had to cram together. Well, this time would work good for you to bring this kind of dinner. And oh, someone's bringing this. So could you bring this instead? And oh, and then when they would come over, she felt like she had to clean her house. No. Just take action. Like she said, volunteer to be like, hey, can I take your kid to school or to a sporting event? Or just drop a Starbucks card in their mailbox and leave them be. Small little actions like that mean so much more, because you don't want to add stress onto somebody. Kind of going hand in hand with this, sometimes just being there and listening to someone who is a caregiver for someone means more than giving your little antidote of, oh, well, when this happened, or, when I was in this situation. Sometimes you just, like I said, everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So just step outside of yourself for a moment and just be there and sit to listen to someone who is going through something like this. That means more to them than any advice you could ever give them. If they ask for advice, sure, give it to them, but just sit there and listen and hold their hand and maybe bring them a Starbucks or a glass of wine too. The second takeaway I have is if you are the caregiver, ask for help. Ask for help, which I know can be really hard to do. You feel like you're in control of everything. When your spouses or partners or whomever you're caring for, when all their doctor appointments are, all the inside outs of their illnesses, what medications they have to take, what therapies they need, what this and that, around the clock care, what's going on. That's a lot of stress on your mind and your body too. So ask for help. Find little small moments of self-care to help fill your cup back up so you can be there and be more effective as a caregiver. Like Amanda said, it could be as simple as going to get a manicure, stepping outside for a walk. It could be meeting a friend for coffee. Whatever these small steps of self-care can look like, do it. Ask for help. Ask for someone to come over and sit with your caregiver, sit with your kids while you go and do this. And don't you dare feel guilty about it. And lastly, this is not really an action step. Well, I guess it kind of is. Like Amanda said, she has a sad story, but she's not a sad person. And I want you to remember her words the next time you're going through a very sad situation. I know sometimes a situation may seem hopeless. It's awful, but you can't let it define who you're going to be for the rest of your life. Amanda had a little girl she had to show up for. Joe wouldn't have wanted her to be a sad person the rest of her life. And like she said, grief is a lifelong walk, and she'll still have her moments of grief, and that's okay. She can be sad sometimes, but she is not a sad person. And I want you to take that inspiration from Amanda and apply it towards anything that you're going through in your life. Let me say it again. You may have a sad story, but don't be a sad person. Be like Amanda. So like I mentioned, make sure to check out the show notes. I know there's still tickets available for the Cocktails and Chemo Gala in Carmel, Indiana on Saturday, March 7th. Come, I'd love to meet you there. I will be there in my dress. I got to get it hemmed because this girl is short. But also check out the Cocktails and Chemo website. There's other ways you can help support people if you're not local to Indiana. One thing my girlfriends and I are going to be doing is writing some notes of encouragement to caregivers and sending a gift card. We're going to have a card writing party, probably some wine involved and some sparkling water, just to be honest. But it's a great way to be able to, almost force these people into finding their own version of self-care and just letting them know that people they don't even know are loving on them, praying for them, and wanting to care for them, because when you're going through something like that, a little surprise in the mail could mean so much. So as always, please leave a rating and review if you loved today's episode, and tag Amanda and I in your stories. You can tag me at Emily Nichols22 or at Self-Care Isn't Selfish Podcast. I'll include a link to Amanda's Instagram handle in the show notes as well. We want to hear your biggest takeaways and how you are going to find time for self-care, whether you're a caregiver, or how you can support someone who's going through a rough time as a caregiver to someone with a sickness. We want to hear what your biggest takeaways are and how you're going to make self-care a priority and just be there for people. That's what it's all about, just loving each other. So thank you so much again for listening. Make sure you tune in next week to hear my big announcement. And remember, self-care isn't selfish. Thanks, guys. See you next week.